All right, we've got a classic today. That would be the original 1980 Friday the 13th, which, if I'm releasing this on the day I plan to release it, it will be today, also a Friday the 13th. Brilliant wording. Anyway, so I'll be honest, I'm not super well versed on the Friday the 13th series. I've seen a couple of the sequels. But today, just now, literally 10 minutes ago, is the first time I've ever seen the original that started that massive series. It has how many movies now? 10, 11, 12? 12 movies? 13? I don't even know. But it's big, so it's like one of the most clearly recognizable brands of horror out there. So, like I said, no time to start than the present, right? So we took a look at this one today. So as usual, spoiler alerts, you know the drill. I'm going to be talking about the film, things that happen in the film, and the end of the film, and all that shenanigans. So, give you your, couple second warning here to click off. Boom. Okay, we're going. All right. So first scene we have is we've got a little campfire thing going on at Camp Crystal Lake, which is the setting. If you're not familiar for some reason with Friday the 13th, that's the key setting, is Camp Crystal Lake. So we have a little singing group going on, and two camp counselors sneak off to go make it the love, to put it politely, in the most romantic way possible to say it. They go to fuck, basically. We'll just cut to the crap, and they die. Cool. So, yeah, they're like, no, we're just, nothing's going on. They don't care. Whoever's killing them, we see it through, I guess, the killer's perspective or whatever, going up the stairs, see them in the loft there doing their thing, and we see through the killer's eyes them meeting their end. Anyway, cut to the present, which is Friday the 13th. It says clearly on the TV there. See it. Or DVD or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. We cut to this young girl by the name of Annie, who is a camp counselor who is heading to this Camp Crystal Lake, which apparently is going to be reopened after being closed for a decent amount of time, which we learned from a couple of locals there. One of them, I think his name's Ralph, is a little bit animate on her not going, saying that place is, it's cursed. It's like, what do they call it? Camp Blood or Camp Death or something like that. I can't remember. I think it's Camp Blood. Or is it Camp Death? It's one of the two. Anyway, he's like really not down with people going there. He's doing his best. She gets a ride with this trucker who takes her down there, and he kind of tells her the story about, basically it's not cursed, but it's cursed. So there were some 2 deaths that happened. There was a drowning, multiple fires, even like bad water, just a whole bunch of stuff that's preventing that camp from opening again. So he advises against it, but she's kind of like, yeah, well, I don't care. I don't believe in that stuff. We're going to open it up. Going to make it available to the kids. It's going to be a good time, beautiful location, all that stuff. Anyway, he drops her off at the halfway point. I don't exactly remember why, but for whatever reason. I guess he's going one way with his trucking load, and she's, not on the way. So she's hitchhiking. Anyway, we cut back to the camp where the owner, Steve, and one of his other camp counselors, Alice, are fixing up the place, fixing eaves troughs and stuff and all that. And 3 others arrive, and we have, basically an introduction to all of these different camp counselors and whatever. So we got Alice, who we already talked about. We have Bill, who is I think he has feelers for Alice or whatever, because there's a couple of instances where there's one scene where he's seeing Alice and this other guy, Jack, doing the kissy faces, and he seems a little distraught. So okay, I'll be real, there's not a hell of a lot of character development on any of these characters, let's be honest. So names are names. That's about as deep as we're gonna get. Then we have Brenda, who is another woman who I guess is there. Wow, this is great. Then we got, what was the Marcy, who I think is dating Jack, and she's the one that I think Bill has the hots for or whatever. And then did I say Alice already? Yes, we got Alice, and then we got Steve, who's the owner of the camp. I think that sums everyone up, right? Oh, and Ned's also there. He is a guy who is there as well. Okay, there's the names of the people. So when I say if some of them dies, you'll know that it was one of them. Anyway, they're fixing up the place. Then they cut to Annie's adventures heading there. She's the one camp counselor that is not there yet, so she's finding where she hits a ride with this person in a Jeep. Kind of gives away that this isn't going to end well because they don't show the driver of the Jeep, which is kind of the ongoing thing for this killer. It's kind of like we see it from that person's perspective, which is what we saw from the first two kills. So Jeep passes the turnoff. She says, that was the turnoff there. And I keep going. So she jumps out of the truck, gets chased into the forest, thinks she's good, throat slit. There we go. First death. Annie's dead, unless you count the two counselors from the past, but I'm not going to. So Annie's your first death. Boom. Okay. Back to the cabin, or the campground, I should say. Everyone's kind of like, where's Annie? She's supposed to be the chef or the cook or whatever, and she's supposed to be really good, and there's a lot of filler stuff before anything happens, I will admit. I mean, it's not a complete waste of time. Like, it's interesting enough. It shows, like, what they're doing for the camp, making it all good and fixing it up. They're putting the archery range together, and there's a scene where someone almost gets hit by an arrow, and it's like a little practical joke. It's and they're like, okay, whatever. And then there's one guy drowning, and he fakes that he's drowning so he can kiss this other one, and then it's just a whole bunch of like shenanigans, right? There's one scene, however, that this was before I think there was like animal rights and PETA and that for harming animals, where they actually do kill a real snake for this movie and film it. So that was kind of not fun. So like, I get that there was no rules about that or anything, but I don't know. That's something that always bugs me about some of these older movies, is that they actually will kill animals on screen for the sake of the film. I mean, like, I know it's a whole thing. You could argue, yeah, but you eat beef, so you're killing animals too. I know. You know what? I'm not even going to go there, actually. I just don't like seeing animals die for real on screen for entertainment. But whatever, it happened. Didn't ruin the movie for me. I'm just saying it's there. So if that kind of thing bothers you, I mean, maybe fast forward that scene or avoid it. As soon as they say there's a snake in my cabin, you can like skip to the next chapter if you don't like that kind of stuff. So there's your warning for that. Anyway, let's cut to the chase here. So essentially a storm comes in, and people kind of go off on their own. So we have Ned, who sees someone entering one of the cabins, and he's like, hello, and he goes to follow, and then it cuts to, I guess, a couple minutes later at that same cabin where Jack and Marcy are, walking up to it with like lust in their eyes. I think that they're actually dating. I could be wrong, but like I get that vibe. Like it's not just like they're banging type thing. Like I think they genuinely care about each other. So I mean that's nice. So they're gonna go dirty some pillows and stuff and whatever you want to say. And they actually succeed in it. They're not like killed mid-sex or anything, which props to them, considering horror movies don't usually let the people have their happy ending, right? Anyway, so yeah, Marcy goes off to pee. She's, happy. Jack's happy in his bed. He's chilling. He hears something, and then you see, right out his neck, arrow from underneath the bed. Someone grabs his head and through the mattress, I guess, and then out his throat, arrow. Boom. So, Jack is dead. And Jack is Kevin Bacon, by the way, so that's fun. That's a fun little fact there. I'm finding out a lot of these movies have people in like really early roles, like whatchamacallit, Nightmare on Elm Street, I think, had Johnny Depp or whatever, and Halloween had Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously. Like, I don't know, she was way more prominent than these guys, but you know what I'm saying. It's kind of neat to see sort of the earlier work of some of these people. So anyway, K-Back is done. He's toast. They also cut, I forgot to mention, when Kevin Bacon and Marcy are banging. They cut to the top bunk, and there's Ned's dead body. So Ned's toast. Ned was the second to die, Jack's the third to die, and Marcy is the fourth to die. Cool. So yeah, the remaining people, we have, who is it? Alice, Bill, and Brenda. I don't even think I mentioned Bill at the very beginning, but there's a Bill also. So anyway, he's, I guess, supposed to be the good guy. They kind of like flag him as that, I guess, kind of. I don't really know. Like I said, these people don't really have personalities per se. They all seem like genuine people, but there's no character building at all. So whatever. Anyway, we got Bill, we got Brenda, and we got Alice, who decide to play strip Monopoly. That's a thing, right? So they're all essentially down to their skivvies except for Alice, who I guess is winning. She's like clothed. The storm had come in and there's rain and everything, and so she's like, Brenda's like, shit, I think I left my windows open in my cabin, so I'm gonna have to call it a night, you guys, have a good one. So she gets up and grabs her clothing off the floor and heads out. I've seen her in the bathroom doing her thing, brushing teeth, all that, getting into her cabin. And the other two are cleaning up, and Brenda. Oh, I forgot to say how Marcy dies. She gets an axe to the forehead. Totally forgot. Sorry. I gotta follow up with these things better. She gets an axe to the forehead, and yeah, boom, dead. So anyway, fast forward to back where we are. Brenda, how does she die? I think she dies off screen. Yeah, because there's like the floodlights turn on by like the archery range or something, and I guess that's like near her, so she sees and she goes to investigate, and then it cuts to off camera in the distance, just showing like forest, and you hear her scream. And so clearly it's assumed that she is dead, which I already gave a spoiler warning, but she is. We find that out later officially. But anyway, so yeah, Alice and Bill are essentially the last two there. Steve at this point is in the city or in the town nearby, and he's at a diner. I guess he went to pick up some supplies or something in his Jeep. He's got a little trailer there, and he's heading back. And his Jeep stalls out, and an officer picks him up and drives him down to the camp. But on the way, he gets a call, so he has to drop him off like partially the way there. So, side note, again, I knew the story going into it, so I mean, there weren't really any like shocking twist surprise things, but like one thing in my mind was like, okay, are they trying to play like the Jeep as like a hint of who it is? Because like the one that killed whatchamacallit, Annie was in a Jeep, so there you go. So then seeing Steve in the Jeep, one could be led to believe, if they don't know the story, maybe that Steve could be the killer, maybe, I don't know. But then there's another Jeep later, so I guess Jeeps are just a thing that like everyone owns. So that goes out the window right away. But anyway, just kind of a little side thing that went in my brain. Anyway, so Steve hikes back to the camp, essentially. He leaves his Jeep. Cop gave him a ride halfway there, and I turned around because of his call. Hikes the thing, and just he has the Crystal Lake sign. He sees a flashlight shining at him. He's like, hello, who's there? And he seems to recognize whoever it is, and he's like, oh, what are you doing out here? And then he's stabbed. Okay, so Steve is dead now. So it's officially now just Alice and Bill. Anyway, Alice mentions to Bill that she heard something. She heard a scream or whatever, and that the floodlights at the archery range went on. And then she's like, oh, they're not on now. He's like, okay, that's weird. I'm going to check it out. So he does, and she goes with him, and anyway, does she go with him? I don't remember. Anyway, he goes to the generator to check it out, and the generator's not working. No, sorry. They go together. They look around. They can't find any of their people. They're starting to panic a little bit. They're like, okay. They went to Jack's cabin. No one's there. They went to archery area. No one's there. They went to the bathroom. No one's there. And yeah, so at this point, Alice is kind of like, we should call someone. So they're like, okay. So they go to the main office. They don't know where the keys are. I guess Steve has the keys, right? Because he's the owner. But they can't find it. It's clearly an emergency. A bunch of people are missing, gone. They don't know where the hell they are. So they smash through the window and they answer the phone. Or they pick up the phone and it's dead. And they're like, oh shit, try the payphone. Do you have a quarter? So for those of you who don't know what a payphone is, because it's becoming one of these pieces of equipment or technology that's extinct at this point almost, you throw a quarter in it and you make a call. I'm sure everyone knows what that is, but I feel like in 10 years' time, people might start not knowing what that is. So there's a future explanation. It's a phone attached to the wall in a public place. You put a quarter in it, you call. Anyway, it feels ridiculous to explain that. And it probably didn't need explaining. Anyway, sidetracked again. So payphone doesn't work. The regular office phone doesn't work. And they pan to the outside and they show that the phone line is cut. So someone's up to no good, right? Someone's messing around. Anyway, they go back to the thing and the power cuts out. So whoever is doing these killings shuts down the generator, sabotages it, whatever you want to say. So Bill says, listen, you try to get some sleep. I'll go fix the generator. We'll deal with all this in the morning. It's all good. I'm sure they're just off doing whatever they're doing. I don't know. They'll be fine, basically, he says. He goes to the generator and he starts looking at it and fixing it around. He's got like a little lantern or whatever. Anyway, cut back to the cabin and Alice wakes up and I guess it's been a while. She's looking around. Bill's still not back. She's like, okay, I guess he's fixing the generator still. So she makes them. Or has he fixed the generator already? I can't even remember. I'm so sorry. I literally just watched this. I'm terrible at this. Anyway, she makes some coffee. She puts on like the burner of her stove and puts some instant coffee into 2 mugs. I guess she's, nice gesture. Here you go. Here's a coffee. You ran out in the rain, so you deserve it. Anyway. Makes the coffee and then is like kind of thinking to herself, okay, I gotta figure this out. Like, what's going on? Oh, shit. Totally forgot another thing. They went into Brenda's cabin and found an axe in the bed with like a tiny amount of blood. That's kind of important. Totally left that out. That was before the generator was cut and everything, so my bad. Anyway, that was part of their initial investigation before coming back and before he going to the generator to fix it. There we go. Key point re-added and retconned into the synopsis. I'm getting too carried away. Anyway, where was I? Okay, she's making the coffee. And she goes to investigate. She goes to the... I don't know if you can pick that up, but there's like loud sirens and crap outside, so that distracted me. I'm sorry. Anyway, I guess they're investigating the murders at the campground. I don't know. That's stupid. So she goes to investigate. She's like, okay, I'm going to go to the maintenance shed where the generator is, and we'll go check it out. She goes in there. There's nothing there. That's strange. And then she goes to close the door, and lo and behold, Bill's body is pinned to the door with a bunch of different arrows. So that's fun. So she freaks the fuck out, as anyone would, and takes off. As she's running, she ends up seeing, she's in the main cabin area, I guess. There's no lock on the door, so she rigs up like a rope with it and everything and all that stuff. Or maybe that's, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, she's in the cabin and lights go through the window. And a Jeep pulls up, a third Jeep. It's not the same Jeep as the second one. It's clearly the first Jeep. Whatever. Anyway, Jeep pulls up, and some like old woman comes out. She's like, oh my god, who are you? Blah, 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 blah. And woman explains that she's Mrs. Voorhees. She used to work as a camp counselor. She's a friend of Steve's, etc. She's like, okay, there's like, people are dead. Like, there's someone out here. We gotta like, go. She's like, what? Ms. Voorhees, along the lines of, basically, I'm not afraid. Let's go check it out. Goes into the cabin, sees Brenda's dead body, who had been thrown through the window, by the way, at this point. She's like, oh my, so young, so pretty. That's a shame. And then she goes off on this long tangent on how she was a camp counselor and her son, Jason, yes, Jason, yeah, Friday the 13th Jason, if you don't know for some reason, had drowned at that camp, and she was his mom, and it was because of young camp counselors who go off to bang and smoke pot. That neglecting her child ended up in, her child drowning. Whoa, that's the killer. Surprise, reveal, boom, done. Okay, so Pam Voorhees, that's the killer, not Jason. There's a scuffle. Alice overpowers her because she's a middle-aged woman, right? Overpowers her, runs away. This happens a couple of times. There's a couple of scuffles. Finally, down by like the dock area, Voorhees has like a machete. I assume it's the machete that Jason uses in future movies. I'm gonna have to rewatch some of the sequels because I don't know. Anyway, that's good. I'm gonna assume that. So anyway, he's got the machete. She attacks Alice. They're fighting on the ground. The machete is knocked out of her hand for whatever reason, and like, yeah, she clocks her pretty good and grabs the machete, and Miss Voorhees is like, oh shit, and lo and behold, Alice chops her head off. So Miss Voorhees is dead. And then for whatever reason, she goes into a canoe and pushes it out into the water and goes to fall asleep on it out on the water. I mean, sure, why not? I guess you don't want to be in the cabin with all these dead people and stuff, whatever. So anyway, she falls asleep on the cabin in the middle of the lake. Daytime pops up and she sees some cop cars approaching and they're calling out to her, and she's like, oh, thank God, it's finally over. And all this nice happy music is playing, and it's like, okay, that's the end of the movie. And then nope, we got a jump scare of little partially decomposing Jason jumping out of the water in the middle of the lake, grabbing her and pulling her into the water. So that's a thing that happens. And then there's another scene at the end where it cuts to her in a hospital. So she, I guess, was rescued. She says, what about everyone else? And the officer there is like, yeah, no, they didn't. No one else made it. I'm sorry. She's like, what about the boy? What boy? The boy who pulled me into the water. You guys saw. Like, where's he? And they're like, there was no boy. What the fuck are you talking about? So, was it a dream? I don't know. Anyway, last words of the film. So he's still out there. Boom. And roll credits. All right. So, let's talk about it a little bit. So, it's a little history. I'm not going to go into it because there are better channels than me that explain it better than I can. But essentially, the movie was made with a very small budget. The people were told essentially, make a movie that is ripping off Halloween. Like, flat out, that's essentially what they said. Even like the crew and cast and all that have agreed. Like, that's what was said. Pick a date that's creepy. You can't use Halloween because that's already used, so they picked Friday the 13th. Anyway. Oh, that's apparently Jason's birthday, by the way, is Friday the 13th. So that's why she was attacking on that day. She mentions that anyway. Friday the 13th is his birthday. Okay. Anyway. So all that out of the way. The developers of this film took the make a ripoff of Halloween and actually did something unique with it. So I wouldn't say that this is a ripoff of Halloween in the sense of like the story and everything. Granted, in 1980, slasher movies weren't nearly what they were, in the 80s, like later 80s, 90s, etc. To my knowledge, I could be wrong. So, in the sense of it being a slasher movie, I guess it copied it a little bit, but the story was unique. A lot of the origin and lore of Jason himself, whether or not he's, actually pulled her in, or if it was a dream or whatever, but we know he comes back in later movies. So as far as like the lore of the series of films goes, very much different from Halloween. The camp setting, I'm not sure if this is the first like camp setting slasher. I know it was before Sleepaway Camp, because I think Sleepaway Camp was it 83 or 84 or something like that? And this was 1980, so it predated Sleepaway Camp. I don't know what else came before that. Maybe there were a couple, but it kind of, I would assume, enhanced the concept of, hey, let's put a slasher in a campground. You're out in the middle of the woods, nowhere. A bunch of kids or young adults, I guess in this case, with no contact to the outside world for the most part. You cut that phone line and like you're isolated essentially. Well, the phone line and the engines of cars and whatnot. So that's fun. So that's nice. Again, for the time, you know, if this came out now with the same story, like, yeah, that we've seen like 100 movies of like campground slashers, but for the time, that was unique. So, I don't think they just straight up ripped off Halloween. Now, one of the things that I do like is that, honestly, the setting. The setting's good. A campground, it's great. That's fantastic for a slasher movie. You can't go wrong. You got all this beautiful nature. You got, you know, the nights are significantly darker than they are in a city and whatnot. Again, the isolation, the very tight-knit group of people for the most part in these situations. It's just a great setting, the woods. Like, I'm trying to think of some other movies that do it super well. And Dog Soldiers come to mind. Like, it works so well for that movie, that setting. God damn, I gotta do Dog Soldiers soon. Anyway, maybe I'll do that soon. But whatever. Anyway, setting is really good. Things I don't care for are the fact that the characters are pretty throwaway. I'll be honest, like, when they introduced Annie, I thought that was going to be the main character. I did. Again, I don't know much about this first movie, so I kind of went in there blind. I knew about, you know, Pam Voorhees being the killer, but I didn't know what the final girl was. I didn't know much of the story. So I initially went in there thinking, okay, you're introducing this Annie girl. She's a risk taker, you know, hitchhiking, whatever. So she's going to be our main girl. She's like instantly likable too. Like, she just seems like a genuinely chill, kind, fun character. Just even her interactions with the locals and everything. And to Alice's detriment, I think Annie would have made a much better final girl. Now, I don't know if that's controversial or not, but as a character, she was just so much more unique. Not to say that any of the other characters weren't realistic, but there was, I don't know, they seemed more generic. Real, but generic. Like, they weren't just a bunch of dumb asshole kids, you know, making pranks and being stupid for the sake of being stupid that you're like, okay, I hope they all die. But their personalities weren't unique enough really to be unique. I don't know how else to say it. So that's one thing that I feel... I mean, they kind of did like a Psycho thing, you know what I mean? Where you get your main character all set up and likable, and everyone's like, oh, okay, this is cool. I'm down with following her through the story. And then you kill her right away. Like, I mean, that's a ballsy choice, and it works most of the time. In this case, I mean, it worked for the shock value for sure. Because like I said, I didn't know much about this film. I'm sure other horror aficionados are looking at me and shaking their head like, you fucking poser. But I'm being real. I hadn't seen it before. I've seen a couple of the sequels, right? I know Jason. I didn't know this first movie or whatever. So that's it worked in the sense of shock value. But I did like her character more. What else could I say? I mean, for the most part, yeah, all the acting was good enough. You know what I mean? Like I said, they seem like likable characters for the most part. Even the sex scenes of like Jack and Marcy, it wasn't forced, really. It was just, you know, it's nighttime, everyone's in bed, they're dating or whatever, so they're gonna go do their thing. You know, it's a thing that happens. And it didn't feel forced. It's not just like, let's throw this in here so we have a sex scene so we can kill people. You know what I mean? So that was good. I guess, yeah, making Miss Voorhees have, you know, ties to them, the ghosty figure that will become the face of the franchise after this is fun. I mean, in that sense, they go by they really have kind of an urban legend vibe in this, like, you know, the cursed campground, essentially. You know, the little boy that got drowned and all the shit that happened after that and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that's fun too, and it sets it apart from Halloween in that sense as well. Now, I'm rambling here a little bit, and I don't want to keep going in circles, so let's go to the rating. Yeah. I don't want to get yelled at by people, but honestly, I wasn't super impressed. Like, I can genuinely say a few of the sequels that I've seen I did enjoy more. So, that being said, oh boy, don't crucify me, but I'm going to give it a 5.8. That's my honest opinion. I think the series just gets better from this point on, from what I've seen. So that, yeah, I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? And I do like the fact that the sequels didn't just take Pamela Voorhees and make her a killer that comes back to life from the dead and whatever. They go with the son thing, who also, I guess, is undead, sort of, right? I don't know. It's a whole complicated thing. We'll talk more about that when we, I guess, the next Friday the 13th. I should do that. Okay, that's tradition. Every time there's a Friday the 13th, I'm going to do the next chapter in this series. Yeah, that's how we'll do it. So, anyway, that's my review, you know, and my synopsis and my thoughts and all that garbage. Do you agree? Am I completely off my rocker in rating it this low and saying that it's not one of the best of the series? Or do you kind of agree? Is it a little bit of a weak start that ends up getting a lot better down the series road? Let me know what you think, I guess. Yeah, and we'll talk again. All right, have a good one.